Welcome to Women's Stories, a platform where women get to tell their own stories in career, education, fashion, family life, politics, and a variety of other topics. Women are underrepresented in politics and leadership roles in Nigeria. Currently, there are only 4 female senators in the Nigerian Senate out of 109. In the House of Representatives, there are 17 female members out of 360 members. Only 8 are women out of 45 ministers in the current administration of President Bola Tinubu. These figures demonstrate that Nigeria is not prepared to accept women in leadership roles. Ahead of the 2027 general elections, what can be done to ensure more women representation? To have the conversation with me is Adora Onyechere Sydney Jack, who is a politician, author, gender advocate, ED, GSAI, and a broadcast journalist. Welcome to Women's Stories.
Thank you so much. It's good to have me.
Adora, we know that you contested for election in 2019, and I'm very sure you have a whole lot of stories to tell us. Go ahead.
Well, thank you for having me on your program. First, I think I would start from party participation. Before I went on to run for elections, I moved back to Imo State, Okigwe to be precise, because this is where my constituent is. And I was eager to be of service and come forward to run for State House of Assembly under Okigwe constituency. And prior to that, I had already started, political party shopping, making some consultancy, and engaging, high-level stakeholders within the political space who are women and gatekeepers. And one of the things we saw first was the fact that women didn't quite have a lot of chances in the big parties. And of course, at that time in 2019, all the big parties and the opposition party had a lot of, system that encouraged or were very prominent with patriarchy. So from the party executives to aspirant nomination, it was basically very masculinized, and it wasn't going to be easy to run under such a party. However, for me, it was not just running under a party. I was also very particular about the party ideal and the party constitution. And whilst that was being done, I also was looking at a regional party that had some level of localized structure at that level. Action Alliance was the party that I ran under. And before I went in to run for election under the party, I also had conversations with the party executives, the chairman, and I asked of how I could be of service within the party and how I could contribute my quota as a member of the party. And coming from the media, one of the things I was very privy to was amplifying the voices of women within the party and also amplifying conversations around our party constitution at the time, because our quota was 50% for women. And because of the toga and the slogan for the party, which means let the masses leave. And when you think about masses, it's about men and women. And so I focused on bringing messaging to the context of the party, narrative and what it signified. And so I went back to Imo State and started to popularize the party, started to educate the young people, the women. And when I had seen that there was, some level of popularity being garnered, I went ahead to enlist and mobilize women to join the party.
Which is key.
Yes. And so from the first time I went home a year and 8 months before the election. So by the time it was time for election, over 3,000 women had joined the party.
Wow.
Had carried members. But it wasn't that easy, but it was easier because I come from a political family background. My mom is a politician. She was also a 2-time commissioner for women affairs in the state. My father is whom I consider a political kingmaker.
Wow.
My mother's mentor in politics.
So it wasn't new.
Yes, it wasn't new in the terrain. But it was it bred an anxiety, because for me, I'm coming from the corporate space, the media. It wasn't as usual as somebody who was, coming into the space as someone who's regular in politics. So they were a bit worried. They worried that I may be too soft. I may be too learned.
That's it.
To be in the space. And it may be difficult for me to wade my way in, especially at that local level of politics with the men. However, I had a bit of convincing done when I made the move and moved back. And so my parents, my uncles were quite, they affirmed their position on, coming all out to support me. And so with their gatekeeping, with their chaperoning, with their mentorship, I was able to, from door to door, get to know the people.
So you enjoyed family support.
Yes. And, I think one of the critical things were that I also was able to know the conditionalities around representation. And so whilst I was in the media, the conversations were always between the leadership, not necessarily the led. And so coming into the constituency and getting in touch with the people, I realized that there was a gap between the demands of those of the constituency and the leaders who are representing them. And it helped me to look at policy restructuring. How do we prioritize the people's needs by getting them on the table and getting them in the room, which is often missing, in real-time representation. And so I started to gather facts, data, engage women, young people. What are really the key problems? There were a lot of out-of-school girls as well. There was a heightened level of prostitution at the time. So there were levels of layers of things that were beyond what I just saw that I thought I could come, because I was focused on, one, how do we look at quality education for the girl child? How do we look at, skills and upskilling skills and entrepreneurship for the young people? And also looking at enabling the functionality of state-owned media, because I felt that was at the barest minimum. And so all of that were some of the factors that I had considered that would be my first, walk in. But when I came back home, it was more devastating than I thought. And when elections came, apparently during the time of election, post or before the election main, we were perhaps maybe like the fourth party or the third party. But accidentally something happened. Along the line, the candidate or the supposed candidate of the APC was the son-in-law then of the incumbent governor of Imo State.
That was Rochester culture.
Yes. And, our party was, Action Alliance was not second, was not third, because you had to look at APC first, and then you look at PDP before you look at any other party. In fact, you would have to look at ABGA first. However, because of the nature of the politics and the conditionalities around the emergence of candidates, it happened that the aspiration of the son-in-law of the governor then was dependent on finding a new party to be able to shoulder his aspiration.
Remember the story then?
Yes. And so what happened was that he now had to come to the party, Action Alliance,
okay,
and made it a perfect alliance. And so from all the members of the APC within the state assembly member now moved to our party.
So the structure was changed completely.
Structure now became Action Alliance for the whole state, at the state assembly level, at the executive level. And so it was now a contest between the Action Alliance plus the APC, and of course with opposition. And so it changed the dynamics. It grew the popularity of the party. It encouraged new membership. And of course, it magnified the money politics.
So your party became a bigger platform.
Absolutely. And so when he came on, the campaign, of course, changed its nomenclature. It became bigger, it became magnified. And again, the candidate that was also the deputy governor, to the governorship candidate then was also from Okigwe zone, where I come from. So, however, there was an intriguing thing that happened. It was all a male affair. There's a lot of boys' club in it. Just maybe a few or two or three women.
Oh, okay.
However, my constituency was going to be under negotiation because when they came on board, I mean, clearly we told them that Okigwe is not negotiable. We were here when you came, and we are actually also playing fair by allowing you to come on board, but we will not remove the women or the woman or the young people who had actually been here before, you know, the entry.
Who have invested their time
Absolutely.
and resources.
Absolutely, of the new entrants. And so coming on board, it was dynamic because my uncle came on board with them and was also looking to run for Kigo constituency.
Oh
at the
my
same
goodness.
time. It was very dynamic for me because at a point I was thinking it to say, oh, he'd been in politics longer than I was, and you know, all of that.
So was the family now saying you should step down for your uncle, or where did the alliance rely?
It was all a choice for me to make.
Okay.
And not just for me, but for the party. The party had seen the strength in how I have, you know, enabled visibility, engaging across board for the party. And so they were adamant that I would, and I have to run to full circle.
Okay.
And so we went into the ring, and that is the contest. Unfortunately, I didn't step down, even though there were a lot of, you know, negotiations, a lot of, you know, pressure from here and there. People came, friends came from within the family. It was tough.
Begging you to step down for him.
Yes. However, I had to say to myself, I could not have left my job, moved back to the East, engaged in all of the structuring, only to come to this point to not just to step down, but to concede to the conversation that I have been privy to while in broadcast and while on air, that women have to step down because of pressure and reduce the ability for younger girls to believe that politics is also an inclusive platform.
True.
And so when I went in to run, I mean, he went on to run in Democratic Alliance, another party. But there was a lot of, you know, intrigues within the party where there were division within supporting lines. One for me, one for him, you know, all of the intrigues, and even both from, you know, the internal party family workings and from the government of the day, because he had also been part of the consistent, you know, figures in the politics of the state. And so they would have preferred that, you know, he would have gone forward, you know, perhaps not me, because, you know, he would have paid his dues and all that. But for me, it wasn't about personality. It was about context. It was about service. It was about what can women do differently. And I can tell you, just by coming out to show interest, a lot of young girls started to emerge, to want to run for councillorship, to want to do things differently, to want to ask, how can we get involved in politics without violence, you know, and acrimony and all of that engagement. And so that was the first step. And
what happened during the election?
Well, during the election, and I think pre to the election, I mean, there were a lot of course, there were. I mean, you wouldn't have not said that you would run an election without experiencing any form of betrayal, any, you know, maneuvering, manipulation, sometimes internally, family,